This is the Aftermarket Radio Network. Hey, Carm here. I never thought I'd be doing a tribute like this for a good friend, Bob Greenwood. His passing really hit me, like it did for so many others. You can't help but realize we lost him way too early in his life. His mission, it wasn't close to being done. If you ever heard Bob Greenwood's passion for this industry, you know that he had high hopes for the future success of the independent aftermarket. His passion for making this great industry a profession instead of a trade was one of his biggest talking points. It was a signature of his wherever and whenever he had a chance to pontificate. Bob Greenwood was the president and CEO of the Automotive Aftermarket E-Learning Center. His company focused on providing business management resources and development for the independent sector of the aftermarket. I would like to share a few noteworthy accolades that Bob has received over the years. You may not know of these, and I'll also insert a few memory segments along the way from friends, colleagues, and clients. Bob Greenwood had over 40-plus years of business management experience within the independent sector of the automotive aftermarket industry in North America, consulting with shops on all facets of their business operations. He ran his own local consulting and accounting firm in Ottawa, Ontario for 18 years and created some of the most productive and financially successful entrepreneurs within the independent sector today. Bob was a frequent keynote speaker at various industry, company, and association conferences throughout North America. He always provided his unique insight from his personal experiences working with shop owners. Bob was one of 150 worldwide AMI-approved instructors. He created business management development courses for automotive shop employers and managers, which are recognized as being the most comprehensive industry-specific courses of their kind in North America. On November 4th, 2003, during Automotive Industry Week in Las Vegas, and in recognition of his contributions to the automotive aftermarket industry, Bob was the first and the only Canadian business management consultant to have been presented the very prestigious Northwood University Automotive Aftermarket Management Education Award. The award is presented to individuals in the automotive aftermarket field who have made noteworthy contributions to education. Recipients are people of stature, and the award is recognition of dedication over a number of years to the educational process in the aftermarket. Here's more info on Bob that you may not know. In November 2012, Bob was one of 37 Canadians out of 400,000 people within the Canadian automotive industry that was honored by the Governor-General of Canada and awarded the prestigious Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal. This medal honors significant contributions and achievements by Canadians. Now, to be eligible for this honor, a person must have made a significant contribution to a particular province, territory, region, or community within Canada, or an achievement abroad that brings credit to Canada. It is presented to automotive aftermarket industry professionals who have distinguished themselves as highly respected by the community and industry leaders. But just as important as all these honors, Bob was always available to talk. We spent our time discussing the professionalism of the North American aftermarket. I know many who were able to spend time with Bob to discuss the industry or their business. He was always willing to help and provide his guidance, optimism, or wisdom. Bob was driven to elevate and make change. I think that is why we got along so well and became friends in such a short time after meeting Bob. I met Bob in 2015 at an ASA event. He and Malin Newton co-hosted a training session. Now, it was a large crowd in a big hall. They did one heck of a job working together, and they had never met before. I found out that they knew each other, but never met until that day. I thought they were best of friends. That showed how much they wanted to make their hosting duties so fluid. So I'm in the audience just starting out on my career as the Aftermarket's podcaster, and I'm saying to myself, I need to meet Bob and Malin. So the presentation ends, and I get out 2 cards, and I watch them both come off the stage at opposite ends of the stage. I look left, and there was Malin, and I look right, and there was Bob. And I kept doing a coin toss in my mind as I saw a crowd of people lining up to talk to them. My coin toss put me in Malin's line, and while in the line, I kept watching the crowd that Bob had, and I was wondering if Bob was still going to be there when I was done with Malin. Well, it was my turn with Malin, and I spoke to him about sharing his story with my audience, and he said yes, and a new friendship began with Malin. And I looked over, and Bob was gone. Oh, I missed him. Well, I figured I'd keep an eye out for him, and I can always email him if I had to, but it would be nice if I could meet in person while at the conference. Later that day, I headed down the elevator, and when the door opened, there was Bob Greenwood. I was so excited to meet Bob, and Malin, of course, but so I dusted off my elevator speech and my business card, and the rest is history. We had recorded an episode soon after we met in the elevator. Now, 6 years later, 1,000+ episodes on the Aftermarket's premier podcast, he was heard in 33 episodes, one-on-ones, and many part of a panel discussion. Bob's message was consistent. He never wavered. I'll never forget recording an episode at Apex 2018 with technical trainer Eric Ziegler and Bob. Eric had long hair. Bob had none. What a combo. However, they each had the same message from both sides of the training realm. We titled the episode In Praise of Our Trainers. It was episode 387. You'll love it. You can hear all of Bob's episodes in a special Bob Greenwood collection that I created on my website. Find the collection icon on the sidebar or on the resources tab. To honor Bob, all of his episodes are in one special place. I have some special thoughts from friends of Bob that I want to share. I thank them for finding the time to record these short memory boosts. Here may be a story you don't know. Bob and Bill Haas founded CAMP, an association of aftermarket business coaches, trainers, and consultants. They wondered where was the peer group of management leaders that were really all working for the same common good of the industry. They formed CAMP, the Coalition of Automotive Aftermarket Professionals, at Vision in 2019 with the goal to elevate the auto repair industry. You can find CAMP on the web at automotiveprofessionals.org. Now, let's start to hear from a few of your industry peers. Hey, let's start our memory blasts with Bill Haas from Haas Performance Consulting. So, Bill, we recently lost a great friend, a peer coach of yours, a great friend of mine. Got a memory of Bob Greenwood?
Wow. Only one? I have a few.
I bet you do.
Talk about great people. Man, I guess I'd go back to when I met Bob. And, that's going back, I guess, 21 years ago, roughly. And at the time, I was working for ASA and, doing all the stuff with education and training and putting on the CARS event and helping put on NACE and, supporting our affiliates. And so CARS was really our, highlighted event for mechanical membership of ASA. And of course, that was that we would always put on management training classes. And somebody approached me and said, there's a trainer that you've got to have at CARS. This guy's great. I'm getting told, the phenomenal stuff that this guy does as a trainer and the impact that he has on people after they've been to his class. That was Bob Greenwood.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. I said, I'll talk to, I don't know the man. I'll talk to the man and I'll reach out and see what the opportunity might look like. And that was just a phone conversation with Bob. Would you be interested in coming to Las Vegas and being a trainer? And, the class will have to be AMI approved and went through the whole thing. And very gracious man. Absolutely. If you have shops there that need help, I'd love to come and help. And he had one request that I thought was so odd the first time I dealt with Bob.
He wanted to have a bottle of Merlot.
No, he didn't want a bottle of Merlot, but I probably could have arranged that easier. He wanted, we knew that there were going to be 100 people in his class. And so he said, you have to have 100 calculators there. I said, I have to have 100 calculators there. He goes, yeah. He said, what I'm going to do with these people, they better have a calculator or they won't be able to do it, and they won't get what I need them to get out of this class. So I went to my meeting planner and I said, here's the deal. I don't know how you're going to do this. Now, I said, but get 100 calculators and make sure they're in that room for Bob Greenwood, to do that class. So not a great task, right? You get 100 calculators and, you get the small handheld ones, solar-powered kind of a thing.
Back in the day, they were $5.
But getting them was sort of a hassle, to be honest with you. You know, if you went into the Office Depot, were you going to get 100 calculators? No, you probably could get 8, maybe, or something, right? That was the challenge in the request, right? But anyhow, we got the 100 calculators.
Imagine you remembering this from that many years ago.
And Bob shows up, and he just knocked it out of the park. And I will never, I remember to this day the reaction of our members coming out of Bob's class into the hallway. Like, you talk about lights being turned on, everybody's light had been turned on.
Anybody who's been to Bob, I've been through one of Bob's classes. He was in Toronto. I'm from Buffalo, and he says, "Hey, listen, I'm going to be up there. Come on up." And he was kind enough to let me sit through as we were getting to know each other, and I was fascinated by his approach to finance because Bob. I always looked at Bob. He's the numbers guy. He's the finance guy. Not that you aren't, Bill. I mean, no. I get all that, but that's where he drove the meaning of his coaching and his consulting and his clients. If they need to know the numbers. Yeah. He was in my mind always the numbers guy.
Yeah. So that was my introduction to Bob, and then I would see Bob when I would go places. Yeah. We would go to the gas symposium. You remember the gas symposium? I'd always see Bob there. Go to Apex. I would always see Bob there. Pretty soon, Bob was coming, Bob was from Canada, but pretty soon Bob was coming more and more into the States and going to other industry events. And so it was just regular that you're going to see Bob, right? Yeah. And we'd always have time to talk, share ideas or, after I left the association and, now I guess it's been 8 or 9 years that we started Haas Performance Consulting. And Bob and I really became much closer then. Then we would, call each other or talk or hey, this is going on. Have you ever dealt with something like this before? What would you do? I mean, great conversations, just two friends that could talk and share and had opportunities to have dinner with and Patty out in Las Vegas. Yeah. And then about 2 years ago, we were just having one of those conversations. And I mentioned to Bob, I said, Bob, I said, you work with so many people. I work with a lot of people. We've got all these people that do what you and I do. We always talk to our clients about how they should be part of a group, a peer group, or do more networking. I said, it doesn't make any sense that we don't do that. We don't have. Where do we go as coaches and trainers? Where do we go? Where's our peer network? And so, from that conversation, Bob came back shortly after that and said, most of us are going to be at Vision, which is, the really great show in Kansas City every March. And he said, maybe we should try and get everybody together at Vision. And that was really the genesis of, what we know today as camp. It was just two guys having a conversation about why isn't there a peer networking group for us as, in our profession?
Camp, a coalition of automotive management professionals. And I was lucky enough, super, super lucky enough to be in that meeting.
Couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah, you could have. And I kept saying to myself, why am I here? And the really funny story, I don't think I told this story, but I think you were at the other end of the table. You and Bob were at the other end of the table. Yeah. And as everybody was just coming into the room, there was one last chair left. And I took it. And it was at the opposite end of the table. It was like, the husband and wife seats at the end of the lawn.
No, we were just going to make sure you got the check.
Yeah.
But Bob, great friend. Certainly miss him.
Yeah.
Think about him often. I'm sure the industry's going to miss him.
Yeah.
Guys like that don't come along every day.
No. But thank you for sharing your memories.
You're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity.
Bob never wavered on his message to elevate the industry. Now, I would hope that his legacy will continue because we will transition into his wishes. I think it's happening right now. Bob always wanted to be sure you paid yourself first an owner's salary. He wanted you to commit to 40 plus hours of business training each year. Bob says there's a huge return for every $1 you invest in training and education for yourself and your people. And he's so right. He did see it work firsthand. Hey, thanks to Tara Topol from Topol Service Center, Lake Mills, Wisconsin, for sharing some of her memories on Bob Greenwood.
We had a lot of wonderful memories, and not as many in person because he lived in Canada and I live in Wisconsin. Our calls were all wonderful. I think my most favorite memory of Bob was when it was in February of 2020. My father-in-law had passed away recently, and we decided to take our whole team to Grand Rapids, Michigan for their training session there. We had some wonderful training. I didn't attend his that time because it was all things he had taught me and was going to be sharing with others. But we did get to run into him at in the hotel bar area while we were waiting to go to take our team out for a nice dinner to thank them for all their hard work for helping before my father-in-law had passed. And Bob came in to grab a bite to eat. The restaurant was really busy and he sat with us. And for me, that was really special because I got to work with Bob regularly, but my team didn't get to know Bob or witness Bob. But here we were all together. And I kind of felt like we were like sitting at Jesus' feet. And he just sat and talked with us and explained things about the industry. He listened to our technicians and some of the struggles that they were having or the different things that they had to overcome, and kind of bridged the gap in my mind between my coach and my team. Really, that was the last time I was able to see Bob then. I would have never thought that. I would have never thought that we wouldn't have been able to say our goodbyes, but that's just how it ended up working out. He kind of seemed like a movie star in a way to so many, I think, because of, especially within our industry, but he was very down to earth, and he always took time to listen and to share his knowledge with others without any strings attached. Right. So I'm very thankful for that. There's a list. I had a very difficult time picking out just the right one. The rest of the story is that he ordered a very nice steak and ate about maybe just over a half. And then that was it. And we were all very hungry. And then we all kind of watched that steak go away. It was done. And we all looked at each other. But so it's kind of a behind the scenes funny memory, but it's also one that I'll cherish forever. Bob did things for me personally and for our industry that I struggle with. I don't know that we replace it, but somehow I think that there are shoes that need to be filled, especially for us shop owners. We're in the trenches every day trying to figure out just how to make our days go. Sometimes we're not always looking out into the future. And Bob did that for us. He spent a lot of time meeting with people and learning about the specifics of the vehicle. And then he kind of took all that data and information and then narrowed it down for us just specifically as shop owners. I know there are a lot of other coaches out there, and I'm looking forward to meeting more of them and getting to know more about them. But it really wasn't an area where I spent time looking at other people and what they had to offer, because I really believed I had the best. And in Bob, I think that's the part that especially that's going to be the most difficult for not just for me, but for really the whole entire industry.
Thanks, Tara. Earlier this year, Bob created a private podcast for his clients and friends, and he called it Bob Greenwood's Second Thoughts. Just 3 weeks before his death, I convinced him to make them public and keep the series going. He recorded 21 episodes. They are short slices of his passion and wisdom to help you reach a new level of leadership and success. Now, we were going to do a big release on the Monday after his passing. It was going to be the first new public podcast under my new aftermarket radio network. So in keeping with our goals, we released his shows on all public podcast listening portals. Now, yes, you can go to your favorites like Apple or Spotify, search for Bob Greenwood, and follow his podcast. Now, over the next 6 to 8 weeks, we will release all the remaining episodes so you can catch these very smart and pointed life lessons from our friend Bob. My lasting tribute to Bob's legacy is to release all these episodes he recorded and keep them published for a long time. Hey, here's Carlos Abuco from Sills Complete Auto Care in Oakville, Ontario.
With Bob, I've known him since I first got into the business. He was introduced when I first started working for my parents back in the 90s. And the most memorable thing I remember about Bob, and it's still to this day, is, Carlo, if you don't make profit, no one will be at your retirement party to cut you a check for not making money. And that's the most memorable thing that Bob's ever taught me. I've done pretty much most of his training throughout my life. People have said that he was bit brash, bit in your face. And that's because he just truly wanted to see change within the industry. He had told us 12 years before the industry saw the wave of technician struggles of not finding technicians. He knew that 12 years before it actually occurred. And one of the few mathematical geniuses in the coaching automotive world. He had formulas and calculations that he had come up with that many others had taken and made their own, but we knew those came from Bob because his background was from a mathematical world. So he's definitely an individual who's touched a lot of people, and he's definitely been memorable to me. You know, even in this past week, Bob always used to say, Carlo, you've got to be the best. You need to have a waiting list of technicians at your door. You need to pay the best. And for the first time in 25 years, we have a waiting list of technicians at our door, which is quite impressive to have that happen finally. Bob's been the best.
You know, Bob loved his Merlot wine, and I enjoyed some with him. We spent time at dinners and at the bar talking the business of the aftermarket. He is so well known for pushing all of us to embrace the industry as a profession instead of a trade. On almost all of these episodes we did together, "We are a profession. The trade days are over" was his recurring theme. You can probably hear him say that right now. We must use Bob's message to break out of the paradigm that we so unjustly earned. It starts with each shop owner to run their business at the most professional level. Let's do it for Bob. Here's one of Bob's great friends, John Cochran from Cochran Automotive in Toronto, Ontario.
Thanks, Carm. Good to talk with you this morning. So nice of you to invite me to have a few comments with Bob. Bob and I go way, way back. The first time that I had exposure with Bob's operation was in 1972. It was when E.K. Williams and Associates. And E.K. Williams was associated with Texaco, and I was a Texaco franchisee. Bob ended up purchasing the E.K. Williams operation. And E.K. Williams taught a Texaco program called Professional Pump Island Service. And it was with all of the passion that Bob always had. He was passionate about the business. He was passionate about making sure that everybody was as professional as possible. And then we didn't have a lot going for a while. And then in the early 80s, Bob and I connected, and we worked from the early 80s right up until the time of his passing, doing many different things. He worked with AC Delco, doing Delco training across Canada. He was a gentleman that had only wanted shop owners to do better. He was absolutely committed to the independent sector of the automotive aftermarket. He was ahead of his time. He made garage owners far more prosperous and far smarter, and taught those men and women about running a business and making it a professional way to make a living versus what a lot of fellows were doing back in the 80s and the 90s. So, I mean, the list of people that are known and associated with Bob goes on a long way, but it was unbelievable. A couple of funny things with Bob. Bob would come to our Canada Day parties. It would be similar to your 4th of July parties. And Canada Day, he came with his wife, he came with his son, Sean, and he was just the party guy. Bob was a professional guy, and he was all business when he was professional. But when he was in the party mood, he was a party guy, and he knew how to have a good time. So we've got probably, I would say, close to 100 people at the Canada Day party. And Bob has decided that he's going to make sure that the women in the crowd have blue martinis. So he brought the vodka, and he brought the, I forget the blue component of it, but he brought that, and he started making blue martinis. Well, I'm here to tell you there was some severe female casualties at the event, and one of them was my wife. But anyways, everybody had a great time. It was a party that nobody will forget, and we really, really enjoyed it. Another one is, in Carmi, you would remember the Global Automotive Symposium in Chicago. And Bob and I would travel to the Global Automotive Symposium from time to time. And there was one time where we were driving to Chicago, and I had forgot my passport. Bob had his, and I didn't have mine. So I went across the border, and we had a discussion with U.S. Border Service. And at some point in time, I was prepared to have to drive back to Toronto to get my passport. And Bob was going to carry on to Chicago on a bus. So that was a kind of a hair-raising experience, shall we say. But the Border Patrol man, after giving us a significantly hard time, referred me to a supervisor, and his supervisor was very kind and accommodating. And he said, "You guys look like you're honest. You look like you've got all the proper places where you're going. We had all our reservations and so on and so forth." And he said, "I'll let you go this time, but don't ever let it happen again." So Bob has razzed me about that. I can't tell you for how long, okay? And about forgetting my passport. That was a real interesting thing. So then we get to Chicago, and this would happen on a pretty regular basis. I was a long-distance runner then, and I'm running marathons. So I would get up at 5:30 in the morning. I would get into my running stuff. I would go for an hour run. Bob would shower and get ready. I'd get back. I'd shower and get ready. And then we'd go down and have a quick bite. But it was kind of a thing we would do when that was going on. So it was those were great times. I tell you, I'll miss the man forever. He was an inspiration to the whole industry. I can't tell you how much I miss him.
And with Greg Buckley reminiscing about our friend Bob Greenwood.
Yeah, Bob was very special, and it was really kind of strange. I worked with Bob for about a year or so, helping me with the shop and succession with the boys and stuff like that. But I actually got to know Bob earlier, around 2016, I think, with the ASA. They were doing some, traveling shows. Kind of like start of remote training or training events. And Bob was one of the headliners. I think him and Donnie Cipher were there and a few others. But Bob, that's where I had heard of Bob. I've never seen Bob, right? And I got a chance to see him. And I always told Bob, I said, "Bob, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of voices that are out there. There's a lot of noise out there." I said, "But you're a signal." I relate to you because as I was sitting through his 3 or 4 hour class, and I was recording. So I said, this information's too good not to take home and absorb. And that's what I was doing. Yeah. But it just resonated with me. And then getting to know Bob a little bit more personally, seeing some of the events, visions is where we were, and getting to know how much he enjoyed wine and laughter and everything. So that was how I got to know him. What he's done for the aftermarket, I mean, he was pretty much on point back in 2016, and that's where to me, that was the start of something. But his voice was fresh. His curriculum and the stuff was like religion, but to hear it in the way that he spoke it, and especially with his Canadian accent, and he even would say to you, I'm this Canadian guy coming down here and I'm talking to you guys. Yeah. But he brought personal stories in that just, like I said, it was a signal. You had to hear it, you had to see it, or when you saw it when he was speaking, man, it just really got to you. And you went back and you go, okay, well, I'm going to change my business. And it was something very beneficial, because we did start to change our business to more, focus on customer attention, but just the modeling of the financial side, that. So it was something.
Your opinion, Bob, I always felt was a passionate futurist. And those are the kind of the two words that help summarize how hard he worked and the muscle he put behind of trying to tell the world that we're not a trade anymore, that we're a profession.
Right.
And all of the terminology that he tried to change, stop calling us mechanics, it's technicians, and it's not a customer, it's a client. And he could always back up and substantiate how we had to rethink who we are. It's time to become a profession. And he never wavered from that message for years. And again, I think that's why I call him a futurist, because way back, many, many years ago, he started with this. He never got off point.
He never did. And that was one of the things that struck me as funny, because here I meet and see him for the first time in 2016, 15, 16. And then we work together as coach and client, and there was no change, which is refreshing, right? I mean, there was adapting, right, for different times, but there was no change in the base message, So
I was chatting with Bill Hawes about it, and I always looked back at Bob. Bob invited me to go to a class. I said this in Bill's segment on finance that he was teaching in Toronto, and I drove up from Buffalo. And I always thought that Bob was the finance guy. I mean, he was so driven by the numbers, and he could show you how you made them, and he could show you, if you paid attention and learned your numbers, how it could benefit not only the company but the people that you work with.
Well, he was one for breaking down every segment of your operation to the point where how much 0W20 are you selling, and who are you buying it from, and are you buying OE parts and aftermarket parts, and where are the aftermarket parts coming from, what vendor. So there was a lot of detail in Bob's curriculum. It's very overwhelming at times, but it drove the point home. You need to realize and you need to see where your income is coming from, where your leaks are, that kind of thing. And then at the same time, the message of what's your customer service like? Are you billing your hours correctly? I mean, that's what I think I took away most from Bob, is the respect for the hours that you have to have, and, raising the game to being a professional. The industry does need to get to the point of, hey, look, we're a professional industry, and we charge accordingly.
Hey, Greg, thanks for sharing a few moments about Bob.
Absolutely. Great guy. And I miss him. I think as an industry, we lost a true leader, a futurist, as you say. Hopefully his messages and his talk and his, everything about Bob will continue, in some way. Someone will come up and hopefully take a spot and keep his thing going. So
thanks, man.
Very good.
One of Bob's passions was to change the terminology of the industry. We did an episode with Chris Cloutier, and it was episode 571. Bob and Chris spoke strongly on changing the words we say that in turn can improve the professionalism of our industry. They both discussed the removal of these terms: shop owner, technician, invoice, service writer, customer, and training. It is tough not to accept the thesis of this rant from Bob and Chris. Please catch it. Episode 571. Hey, here's Dwayne Myers from Dynamic Automotive, multi-shop operator out of Frederick, Maryland. Hey, Dwayne.
Hi, Carm. How you doing? I first met Bob probably close to a decade ago in the education committee with AutoCare, and we gravitated to each other. I looked at him as more of a legend and a mentor because he spoke so eloquently, but he was always looking out for the shop. I mean, we in education committee, we're looking out for the industry, but he made sure the shop wasn't forgotten. And when I joined, he came over and actually helped me and got me up to speed. I learned there that, he just didn't look out for his own people. He looked out for everyone. And it really made an impact. And we served on that a couple of years until he rolled off because of time. And then we would recurringly see each other at training events or at Apex. And we just have the greatest dialogues. And I think it's because he was such a great listener. He would listen to you thoroughly, and then you would have a good conversation, and he would vet whatever you would have, your idea, and then he would throw ideas at you, and you could have a playful, not a fight, but you could stand your ground, and at the end come up with a great idea. And I think that's where Bob was really special, was he listened to everybody, gave his input, and then in the end we combined our ideas and came out with something that helped people in the industry. And I'll never forget that. And it's one thing I try to strive to help others and all, because he was a great example to me and what's the right way to help this industry. And what a loss for all of us. But he made his impact. He made it on me, and I know he made it on a lot of our friends and colleagues. He will always be around just because of what he has done, and he'll be dearly missed.
I'm with Craig O'Neill from Autotext.me. Hi, Craig.
Hi, Carm. How are you?
I know that Bob was a coach of yours back in the family business.
That's correct. He was my coach.
Yeah. Give me a memory.
Well, my best memory with Bob was my first class with him it was February 2017, hometown of Grand Rapids. The Auto Value Tech Expo was in town, and it was a very cold February. I wasn't really ready for Saturday morning training for an all-day business class, but I knew I needed to do a different course for the first time. So I took his class. I had no idea who he was, and I was wearing a hoodie sweatshirt, took a seat towards the back, and was just kind of cold and tired and stressed out. You see, it was a really low point in my career with the family business. It was a very difficult time for me to stay engaged and stay encouraged. And before me was a man who could ignite the room. He started speaking, and it felt like he was speaking straight to my heart. I heard a man that had passion for the automotive industry as a true profession. You would hear him say, and you can probably hear him saying it still, the trade days are over. Yeah. This is a true profession now, and it's time we start acting like it. And he talked about all kinds of things. He said to us, what is your job? You get all kinds of answers to that question when you're talking to shop owners or technicians, right? We fix cars.
Yeah, a trick question.
Yes,
yeah.
Totally. And he pulled us right in with it, and he was getting all the right trick answers.
They laid right in his lap.
Absolutely. And he says, no, your job, your professional responsibility is to make sure vehicles are safe, reliable, and efficient. That is your responsibility to your client, not your customer, but to your client.
Did you notice Craig said client? We talked about it in one of the other retrospects. Bob said, no, they're not customers, they're clients. So see, Here you were a great student. You changed your dialogue.
I changed my dialogue. I changed the way I dressed to these events. You see, I was sitting there in that hoodie sweatshirt now, and Bob drew attention to the fact that he's talking to an audience of people at a technician expo. Very specifically, it's a tech expo. Obviously, there's management courses as well. Management for shop owners, that's pulling them away from technical training every time, but they're dressed in their snap-on jackets and everything else. Our industry is very used to this, and we're comfortable that way. And here's a man well-dressed in a suit, and he drew it right out. He said, I'm not standing here dressed like this for me. I dress like this out of respect for the people that I'm talking to.
Yeah.
That stuck with me so well. The first time I met you, Carmen, the only reason I met you at all is because Bob introduced me to the podcast. He was the one that told me about Remarkable Results Radio, and it was May of the following year, and it would be, it was May that year, 2017, in Detroit, the Cars conference. You were the first person I saw in the lobby. And of course, I had recognized you at that point because I'd been consuming podcasts left and right. And for the first time in my life, I'm walking into one of these events well-dressed. And I was so thankful for it because I remember seeing you. I said, "You're Carm."
Was that Cars at the Cabo Center?
It was right there in Detroit. I think it was near the airport.
Well, I'm trying to remember because I'm going to tell the story on the show. I either already did it or I'll do it at the end of when I first met Bob, and that may be the event that I met you too.
It was.
Yeah.
Yep. It was the first time I'd met you, and we struck up conversations, and evidently you wanted to talk to millennial.
I do. I wanted to talk to millennials. I wanted to talk to family business people. That's part of my huge legacy in this industry. And, you shared, I'm telling you, go look up Craig O'Neill and listen to the first episode I did with him. You just shared the whole family journey. Is so interesting.
It was hard.
And and it was Bob that hooked us.
He did. And he kept me going through it. For that full year that he was my coach, before I in fact left the family business, he was the guy on the other end of the phone that would hear my most stressful days, and he would listen, and he'd listen, and he'd listen. And I can go on, Carm.
I know that. See, I just put in a quarter before, and look at I got 5 plays.
And it's just the way I'm wired, right? But he was great, and I can still hear him. Is like, just Craig, you just need to slow down, just stop. Just breathe. And then he would give his 2 cents on a few things here and there. And
so you had to get it off your chest before you would be willing to listen.
Yeah. He figured that out quick.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, thanks for sharing this memory.
Oh, anytime, Carm. I appreciate the opportunity to do so. And I hope I can do his memory some justice by carrying forward the lessons he taught.
The news of Bob's passing rocked my world. It made me rethink a few things, but also inspired me to continue to use Bob's passion for the industry in my work. We were kindred brothers that had the same goals in mind. I loved collaborating with him on his Second Thoughts podcast and the ideas for shows and panel discussions in Remarkable Results Radio. I'll miss the conversations and, most importantly, his friendship. The guy who was on that elevator that day in 2015 really had an impact on me and on the industry. Bob, I'll miss you.